The music is too loud.
And they're going to be in the back or just in front of us?
They'll be projected on the screen behind us.
Hello, everyone. Hope you can hear me. Thank you all for joining us today. The name of this panel is Worlding Differently. It's great to have you all here today. My name is Tamar Clark-Brown, and I'm one of the Arts Technologies curators at the Serpentine in London. With my work with Serpentine, it involves commissioning new artworks, events, research, R&D projects, mostly engaged with experimental world building and exploring the untapped civic and social potential of technologies. This recently includes launching the 3rd edition of our annual Future Art Ecosystems publication on art and decentralized technologies. Joining me today, I'm thrilled to introduce IRL, Itzel Yard, or Ixshells on the left, direct left, Sutu, and virtually we have Mimi Onooha, Rodell Warner, and last but not least, Gabriel Massan, with whom we released a special token with Tezos a couple of days ago called Fun Fun, Close Your Mind to Start, a pre-release gift from their upcoming video game project called Third World, The Bottom Dimension, a disorientating and multi-level world-building game project, an accompanying Web3 strategy that explores contemporary Black, Indigenous, Latin American experience and challenges colonialist concepts of exploration, nature, and knowledge, experimenting with memory as a transformational material and exploring what it could mean to engage and empower players as stakeholders and agents within wider cultural shifts. So on your seats, I think some of your seats, you will find a sticker which has got the character from the game called Fun Fun. If you scan the QR code, you will be linked to the Serpentine website where you can sign up to play the game. It will be released next year and also will formalise in an exhibition as well in summer 2023. So before we get into it, I want to do some thank yous. Thank you to co-founders of Tezos, Arthur and Kathleen Brightman, and the Tezos ecosystem at large. The collaboration between Tezos and Serpentine emerges from a long commitment to enrich the landscape of ideas surrounding the blockchain and also to connect communities. And it's one that sees us here for the 2nd time year running at Art Basel Miami, so thank you. Not to forget also Serpentine's supporting team. I want to say a quick thank you to our CEO, Bettina Korek, Artistic Director Hans-Ulrich Obrist, Kay Watson, Head of Arts Technologies, R&D Strategic Lead Victoria Ivanova, Curator Ava Yeager, Associate Producer Rose Jean McVeigh, and Alex Boyce, Producer. So time to introduce everyone. And I have to apologise, I've got a sore throat, so I am also sucking a big sweet as we talk, so sorry about that. So let's introduce everyone. We've got Itzel Yard, artist, Itzel, on our left, also known as Ixshells, is a generative artist based in Panama. Ixshells is self-taught. Her constant research is fueled by a sense of rhythm, passion, and wonder. Her love for computers started from a very young age with video game missions. These quests turned into riddles and seeds of real-time visions of what surrounds us. And eventually, the patterns found within the darkest alleys of our minds became a quest for the parallels. Ix has been creating digital art collections since February 2021. One of the most significant projects in her career was the piece Dreaming at Dusk in favour of tour projects to support journalists, whistleblowers, and human rights defenders. The auction rocketed Ix to the forefront of the female artists working in the NFT space. Ix is also a leading voice of the generative art movement, creating poetic visualizations of algorithms and experimental music. As a co-founder also of Creative Code Art, Ix is a strong advocate for an entire community of artists who are pushing the boundaries of creative coding. Welcome, Ix.
Thank you.
Sutu is an award-winning augmented reality designer, avant-garde movie producer, and multimedia artist. Sutu is an architect of the digital, connected future. Much of his work presents a commentary on our future digital culture and often leverages new technologies. His work is shown at Sundance, Tribeca, South by Southwest, Venice Film Festivals. He's lent his creative and technical direction to projects spearheaded by Steven Spielberg, The Weeknd, John Legend, Google, Marvel, and Disney. in the NFT world, Situ is the creator of Neon Z XYZ, a cyberpunk avatar project where the NFTs unlock experiences in the Situverse, a Web3 playground built in AR and WebGL. Virtually, we have Gabriel Massan, who is a multidisciplinary digital artist. Combining storytelling and world-building techniques, Massan creates digital worlds and sculptures that alternatively simulate and narrate simulations of inequality within the Black, Indigenous, Latin American experience. Working across 3D animation, digital sculpting, and painting, single-player games, NFTs, and virtual augmented reality experiences, Gabriel investigates notions of strangeness and ignorance and how the third world is imagined. Mimi is an amazing artist. Mimi is a Nigerian-American artist creating work about a world made to fit the form of data. By foregrounding absence and removal, her multimedia practice uses print, code, installation, and video to make sense of the power dynamics that result in disenfranchised communities, different relationships to systems that are digital, cultural, historical, and ecological. Mimi has spoken and exhibited internationally, has been a resident at Studio XX, Data and Society Research Institute, Royal College of Art, IBEAM, Art House Foundation in Nigeria, and lives and works in Brooklyn. And last but not least, and then you can stop hearing me talk, is Rodell Warner, who is an artist, Trinidadian artist working primarily in new media and photography. His works have been exhibited at the Whitney Museum of American Art, the Berlin Biennial, the National Gallery of Jamaica, and more. Most recently, his digital animations using archival photography have been exhibited at the Art Gallery of Ontario in the landmark 2021 exhibition Fragments of Epic Memory, and at Turn Gallery in the Bahamas in the 2021 solo exhibition Augmented Archives. Rodell lives and works between the Port of Spain in Trinidad, Kingston, and Austin, Texas, in the United States. So to begin, this conversation is about worlding differently. So I want to kind of start by asking all of you to kind of give us your quick definitions of what you think of or what you understand when we talk about worlding, world building, and start from there. So maybe we start with Situ or Itzel.
My definition of worlding differently, right? Well, I think everybody here has different styles of art and different mediums, different ways to express themselves. And I think for a long time, we were used to being part of an art world that will create certain protocols and will make artists express almost in a similar way all the time. But now I feel like we're stepping out of that box and like being part of almost like a stream of, it is a stream of data that is allowing us to evolve into something else. Like we're using tools that almost turn us into cyborgs in a way. Even if you're not creating art, you're still dependent on your phone, on your computer, on certain devices that are not attached to our bodies. So in that way, we're making our brains, or we're stimulating our brains enough to create even other versions of ourselves. So when you mention the word worlding differently, I think we're just creating different worlds within what we see as a physical realm. And by doing that, we're almost like contributing to the expansion of this universe as we know it. And we're exponentially evolving. We can see it in real time. Like the tools that we used 2 years ago, for example, using AI or VR art. I see some artists here that I have been inspired by for a long time, and they use VR tools. And back then we saw it as something completely out of this world, and now it's like, okay, we're using something that is normal. And it just keeps happening even faster, like every 2 months there's something new that makes us feel that things are just accelerating. I think that's a broader view of your question.
Do you wanna? And also, I recognise we do have a lot a lot of artists on the panel, so if you don't want to answer the question, we can kind of see how it free flows a little bit. Some of you will answer some of them, some of you will answer other ones. So if you want to, if you've got an answer to that question, so too.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely think we're sort of at an interesting time right now where, as Ix was saying, there's a lot of opportunity and potential and access to tools for creators to start creating not only their digital identities, but the digital worlds that they inhabit. And then they can start to really think about what that representation looks like, whether they want to have a realistic representation of themselves or whether they want to ignore the sort of the natural laws of physics that apply to us in the real world and throw those all away and decide that we're going to be floating, or, you know, maybe we're not humanoid, or, you know, maybe we have 10 sets of arms or something like this. And that side of it really excites me. You know, how can we push our potential as human beings to use technology to access these new capabilities? What does it mean if we have 10 sets of arms? Can we train those arms to allow us to play 10 pianos? Who knows? And then the other aspect of it is this world building together. So there's a huge opportunity right now for us to use technology to collaborate and collaboratively world build. And that's the part that I'm super excited about. I'm an artist. I like to create these worlds, but I'm also running a technology company, and we create tools that allow artists to also create these types of experiences. And the most rewarding thing for me, especially this year, has been seeing artists use those tools and in ways that I never would have expected. And very quickly, you're seeing these worlds kind of being created before your eyes. And it's just the most exciting thing to sort of see creativity unlocked and communities start to just form these little worlds to inhabit.
Thank you. I'm going to ask if any of our virtual panelists want to answer that question as well.
Yeah, I definitely want to jump in on this. I feel like so I feel like having heard the word worlding kind of pop up in the last few years, I felt like I had a kind of like, I don't know, intuitive understanding of it, or like informal understanding of it, as something to do with like building a set of references, right? And like, you know, you'd find artists talking about the worlds that they're creating, right? And I usually would feel like it has just something to do with a set of like characters or environments or references that they're kind of putting together, that they're like inviting you to participate in, and it's kind of separate from, you know, normal reality or other worlds that you might encounter. And then in preparation for this, I realized, well, do I really know what this is? So I went and looked it up, and I realized that I learned that worlding, the person that came up with the term, it has something to do with like one person kind of imposing or offering a perspective to others. And what a big deal, a big thing was happening like with NFTs in the NFT community, and that's so felt on Tezos because there are so many artists, is that we're definitely doing it together. Like, you know, there are so many people who are like, first of all, suddenly all in one group. Like, you know, I didn't know there was so many digital artists in the world, like, but now we're all online and we're all connected, and we feel connected, and we're sharing ideas every single day. And when you go to like some Web2, like you go to Instagram to tell people about what's happening in Web3, it's almost like you're going back to some world that existed before. Like you try to explain stuff, and you have to like oh yeah, y'all don't have the references. I have to like tell you, I'm gonna tell you the whole story in order to like explain what's going on, because it's happening in another world. Because all the artists who are suddenly online because of the incentives that NFT provide, we're all building this world together that doesn't exist otherwise. And then there's something else I want to say about it. I don't remember.
We can return when if it comes back to you. I was just going to ask if the person you're talking about was Gayatri Spivak, in terms of
Yes.
worlding in terms of a kind of post-colonial sense of someone, I suppose, mapping and this kind of sense of cartography, archiving, you know, referencing and building these references that aren't necessarily from you.
Yes.
and kind of imposing that on you in terms of a different sense of navigation. So I just
Yes.
wanted to loop
And-
back and make that
And
reference.
you said map. Thank you for noting the name. The thing that was, remember you said mapping and you reminded me, is actually so initially we're all like doing better because we're all connected online. We're not like kind of suffering in siloed positions all over the world anymore. We're finding appreciation for our art. We're finding each other online, and the platforms that we're doing it on, we don't have control of, in the early stages exactly, and we're concerned about what's going to happen if these things fall apart, And then you realize that, oh, well, actually, there are people in the group who can build new spaces. And when I'm thinking of worlding, I'm thinking that, in this group, in this kind of community that exists online now of artists and builders, web developers, we actually have the tools to make new spaces and to design all of what we need to exist together in whatever ways we imagine, and we have each other's imaginations to kind of rely on and feed off of and build on together. So yeah, when I think of worlding, and it's kind of happening at the same time as realizing that we're all connected now over the last 2 years in ways that we weren't before. These are the things I think about.
Thank you. And Mimi or Gabrielle? We jump to you, Mimi.
Sure, I'll jump in.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go ahead. Yeah, I think that I agree with a lot of what has been said. I think it's like the more tools we have, then the more spaces we're able to create. But I think fundamentally for me, what worlding has to do with is thinking about how we relate to each other in those spaces and the terms that affect how we relate to each other. And I think that is what's so powerful about new tools, is that they can change that. They become mediators of how it is that we're creating things and how we are being with each other. And so I think, in my work, I always say I want to create worlds that are based on what we desire, not just things that oppress us, and not just violence, but based on what is it that we want to see. And I think a lot of that has to do with really how we relate, how we think about collaboration, how we think about control or possession or challenge all of those things. And that's the power to me of the phrase and of embracing it, of embracing worlding. It's this, like, we can change, we can be more expansive about how the things that we create allow us to be together in different ways.
I love that answer. Gabrielle?
Yeah, I think also agreeing with Mimi and everyone. It's like if I go back, like when I was first presented to like this first meeting, like technology, community, and storytelling, kind of like started, I think, for me because in Brazil, Orkut, which was like this huge social media network from Google. It was wild in Brazil and I think in India too. And then I started in Orkut having like a fake, and was a fake of The Sims. Like I had my own profile, but my version on The Sims. And I was part of like a huge community where everyone had a name and everyone was using like a character of The Sims to represent them. And we basically have like magazines, cities, different communities, and for me, it started there when I was like really young, maybe like 11. Um, but also going deep on what it means to create worlds and what it means to invite audience to check on your world. I think this is something that is already like on books since forever. So as we all agreed, like with technology, things are changing and changing and changing, and step by step, we're able to really get immersed and also invite people to get immersed with us. So I see also like from the arts and technology perspective, seeing world indifference has the galaxy or the universe that is always being expanded, or we always discovering something new or a new habitat for us to like be amazed about it, or just to reimagine what it means to be inside a world. So I think for me it's like that. and worlding differently, I think is also has an action, and it's always getting expanded. Plus, it's always possible to being reimagined.
Thank you for those answers. I also want to encourage you all, if you want to ask each other questions as well, feel free throughout the process. I think one of the things that really ties together all of your works in different ways for me is, I suppose, your connection to archives and memory and storytelling in these different ways. So I'm kind of curious how you might sort of contextualize your work or think about these things and the possibilities of these things in relation to blockchain, can be NFT specifically or blockchain wider. And whoever wants to start, jump in. It's a battle. Fixed.
So how do you think about our work relating to
Relating
blockchain?
to archives and
Archives and
memories,
blockchain.
but yeah.
Now that you talked about memories, I met Gabriel Massan's work like 2 years ago. And I remember clearly this video where he was like by this train rails and everything had, I remember the colors of the video, remember the way it was structured. And I fell in love with his work, with their work. I wanted to share it all over, and I did it for a bit. I think most of digital art has been about sharing for the past few years, because most digital artists only had social media to be able to display it. And that created a community of like exchange of like stories or just like comments that will make you want to keep going. I think blockchain technology has become like another version of that. The communities that were created around NFTs were created because we wanted to support each other. There's at the beginning of these changes, there wasn't royalties for artists, and a group of artists fought to have royalties implemented on chain. Like one of them is right here. It's a giant swan. He's like an OG of super rare, and I don't remember the other names, but like if it wasn't for a community of people that want to change things around, I don't think art will evolve, and no doors will be open for more artists to have the same opportunities. Like me, like I'm from Panama. I think it's a developing country. I only know 5 digital artists, literally. Like there's no digital artists. Everything else is danza, contemporary dance, plastic art, or painting. And that's crazy that I had the opportunities that I've gotten so far, because I couldn't leave from my art before. It was impossible. Not even $1 I've gotten from my art in my own country. So if it wasn't for the communities that were created out of NFTs, I wouldn't be here, and I think many artists wouldn't be here either, or wouldn't have been discovered by a certain time, and other organizations that fight to promote their art. That's one of the many changes that we have through blockchains. Another one may be that the way I display art, before it was only online, and now I can do it in a physical setting. I can think about extending it as a print or in a screen or projection, and now we have the funds to try to do it ourselves without waiting for a gallery or someone else to help us with it. So those are some of the changes I can think of right now.
Is it? I suppose I'm hearing you talk about the different ways in which maybe working with blockchain and I suppose working with these different communities is kind of allowing you to like manifest your work and your ideas differently in lots of different forms, to move, to travel, but also to be realised in a different way, I suppose, which is super interesting. I know, Situ, I know your work actually beginning from Brianna's Garden, That's kind of how I came into it. But you do a lot of kind of storytelling with different communities, indigenous communities as well in Australia. But you also have a really wide practice, and you do a lot of things with gaming. And I'm super interested how you kind of relate to this question about archives and memory as well.
Yeah, I think that my interest in technology and storytelling and combining those two disciplines is I'd like to challenge myself with like how can we use this kind of relationship to tap into deeper, more meaningful stories, so it's not just a gimmick. So you mentioned Brianna's Garden was a project that showed here in Miami last year. We created it with the family of Breonna Taylor, specifically with Janiyah Palmer, Brianna's sister. And it created an augmented reality experience where you meet a volumetric 3D capture of Janiyah, and she welcomes you to this garden, and she tells some beautiful stories about her relationship with Brianna. And then she invites you to leave a message for someone that you love or you miss, and you record a message, it gets moderated, and then it grows as a flower in the garden. So collectively, we've got hundreds of flowers in this garden that have been left there from a lot of people. You can download the app for free. It's called Brianna's Garden, and be prepared to hear some very emotional, moving stories, but all coming from a good place. And what this experience has aided is, potentially a way that we could navigate grief. And this is what I like about these possibilities. We approached Janiyah because she had to publicly go through losing her sister in one of the biggest high-profile cases in America, and she was experiencing death threats and horrible comments on her social media, and we were very disappointed. I collaborated with the director, Lady Phoenix, on this, and we were very disappointed with just the lack of just protection for her on social media, for Instagram and places like this. So we were really motivated to create a safe online space for her. So that's why any messages that are left in the platform are moderated. And this kind of, for me and Lady Phoenix, and also for anyone that was involved in the project, it kind of opened our minds up to, how we could do this community building better. How can we set some precedents? And that project helped us to get into conversations with Facebook and these places that are dominating the space, and how can they make their platforms better and safer for everybody. And now I think, now that we're sort of transitioning into this kind of Web3 space now, it's interesting to just think about so many important memories were captured in that project, but they're so dependent on a proprietary software. They're so dependent on that platform living into the future. Whereas one of the promises of the decentralization is that we don't have to be dependent on this proprietary software. There is some legacy built into the model, and with that legacy there can be ownership of every person's entry. It's not going to be owned by a corporation, it can be owned by that individual. And I think as that concept continues to grow and become more educated on that, we are actually giving more sovereignty back to the creators and any contributors in that sense. And I think that's really, really important.
It's really powerful. Thank you for that. Who wants to jump in on that next? Redell?
Yeah. So I think of my practice as making things that I need, right? When I started making art, I was making T-shirts because I didn't see anything around that I wanted to wear or had access to stuff that I wanted to wear. And when I moved out of my parents' house in my early 20s, I started making work about social interaction because I moved into a new space where I didn't know how people behaved. I had lived in a familiar neighborhood my whole life, and it took me a while to realize that all these seemingly really disconnected things I'm doing are actually connected because what they are is things that I need, and so I have this practice of making things that I need. When I started sharing work on minting work, sharing work on Web3 platforms, I realized that the things I was making maybe didn't have much resonance with the people I was meeting online because it's a whole new community and the references are different. The reason I made those earlier works, it doesn't mean anything to these people I'm meeting now because they're in a different world, literally. And so we're talking about archives and memory, right? And what I realized I needed to do was to make work for the sake of connecting with these people. I literally want to make something that would allow me to have something to talk about with all these people I was meeting online. And what I realize now is that, you know, it's so early in the whole Web3 thing that everything that we do online, and it's all being recorded in all these different ways. We're like generating the archive of like art on a blockchain, like Web3 art. And so like that's how I think that like archiving and like how it connects to what I'm doing. But I also want to point out that yeah, like, you know, I just started by answering these questions right away, but I actually had to chill out, like really cool down, like really like try and relax myself before this call, because like everybody in this call, these people are like absolute legends in this space. Like people who are like, when I first got on Discord, like I didn't use Discord, got on Discord to like talk to Web3 people, like Itzel created this space, this Discord space with, it was called Creative Coding, and there's like all the creative code, like everybody doing creative coding, that they're in there talking about you know, code, like sharing solutions, sending links to each other, all this stuff. Like I'm sure that Discord, that stuff is all archived. Like that's all you know, like Sutu like has one of the first and, you know, biggest creative one, first and largest PFP projects on Tezos. Like that's a huge part of the archive. But like every person on this call, if you go and look at what they were doing like 2 years ago, you know, they're making like major moves that are kind of inspiring a lot of people, kind of demonstrating what's possible, and also creating instances for us to connect, like creating works for us to like all gather on. Like, you know, there are 10,000 neons tokens. That's like, imagine the number of people connected via that project alone. And that's all on the blockchain. That's all on Twitter. That's all in the Discord for that project. And like, yeah. So, like while we're doing this, like for all the different reasons that we're doing this, we're also doing it for the sake of being together, for the sake of exploring what's possible in Web3, and so in the process, we're like generating, you know, just automatically generating the history of the blockchain, alternate blockchain. So it's kind of interesting to think of archives in that context, because all of what we're doing now is kind of like historic.
It is completely, and it's really nice to have you all in the room together as well, because before, different people that were here were telling me, you know, I love this person, I love that person. It's always great to be able to kind of bring people from the Web3 from any space together in a conversation and make those connections, IRL, some of you IRL. I wanted to ask Mimi as well, because I think you're a bit newer to the space, I suppose, but you know, you've got projects like the missing data sets that are kind of focused on this, but your work recently for, I think, Feral File, I'm curious kind of how you've approached the space. You're all kind of coming at it from different perspectives.
Yeah, it's true. I'm not exclusively an NFT artist. I'm an artist who works across all types of media. I work with code, I work with media, but I really will jump to whatever format makes sense for the particular work. But for a long time, I have been working around and thinking about just data in general, and just something I'm always struck by, just thinking about the blockchain, is that fundamentally it's a data structure, but it's a data structure that spurned this whole world and industry and philosophy. And I think of data as the thinnest archive. It is an archive of sorts. But my work is really about what can't be contained in things. A lot of my work is about absence. It's about what's missing. And so I think a lot of that comes from being somebody I've always felt like such a hybrid, just always in between so many categories and worlds, like physical places. And I think a lot of my work has to do with that. And so I'm really interested in this idea of just blockchain being a permanent record, but permanent's not the same as accurate, and permanent and unchangeable aren't the same things. And so then it becomes this place where you get to think about what values are encoded in and around it. And then what's missing and what can't be contained in it. And so a lot of the things that I have done in this space, really, they always are still pointing to what can't be held, like what can be held and what can't, and seeing both of those as not as like a lack, but just as a thing that makes something more possible. So I think that this, like, I think that for me, that just brings a different angle to thinking about all of these things. And it ties back to that first question about the worlds that are being created, I guess. I think there's so many archives create a world, they live in a world, and I think I'm always thinking about drilling down to say what's at the core of all of these, and then what ties things together. Yeah, so for me, I found it really great to be able to cross over. I think I'm crossing over in a lot of different worlds all the time, and gaining a lot from that.
Thank you. And Gabriel, I was going to talk a little bit about, I suppose, the work that I know from your other NFT collections. Especially, we spoke a lot about, I suppose, possibility and creation of possibility and simulation with creating so many different, I suppose, tokens that are themselves archives of life, sort of movement, or of possibilities of movement, or possibilities of ecology, or these different things. So I'm curious how you relate to the question as well.
Yeah, I think what Excel's told about my work was really cute. And going back to that video that you mentioned, I think my work was always related to memory, uh, more in an attempt to save and to remember. And I think, like, when I did this video, for example, Colorado Fair, I did it in 2017 or 2018. I was living in Rio de Janeiro, and I was crossing the city to get to the art school that I like going at this moment. It was like 3 hours to get there, and basically I could like see all the different perspectives in the city, going like the favela to the beach. Basically, was that. So like every day I was going to the same space and passing through the same locations. And there was this spot really close to my home. It was like this favela in front of a river, and the train line was really close to the houses. So I saw that, and I don't know, I felt so many things, and was also like a space that only people that was like inside the train, only the workers could see that perspective of the favela because there was no entrance. So basically, people were living in a spot that was only possible to see from the train. So I decided to go there and to shoot a video, not showing this place, but showing my body in this place, my memory in this space, not portraying this space, but portraying who am I inside this space. So I decided to run against the train, and I recorded that. Also, like to run against my own path to this school that was so I don't know, for the upper class and all the things like that. And then going back to my work, and I started to realize that I didn't want to do more like video performance, didn't want to see myself again. So I jumped to 3D art and 3D experimentation. And it also like came from this desire to like, how can I personificate all the things that I don't know about myself? Plus, how can I go deep inside all the memories that I could not access from my family, from my ancestors, and not to rewrite, but try to imagine what was stolen, what was erased, because I don't have like an archive, or I don't know much more after my grandma. So my art started to be not an attempt of like how it can be, but more like how it will be. Um, and that was from like sculpting digitally because I didn't have the materials to really go deep on sculpture with clay or anything. So like sculpting digitally was what I could do because there it was like infinite material. Um, so within the blockchain, I could, for the first time, really like storage all those works and create collections and exhibit at the same time, and having collectors visiting my page and being put on like exhibitions and having other artists, being able to support other artists, like collecting work from other artists. So at the same time, I was feeling that I was reaching other communities, but not only communities. I was like kind of like engaging with different storytellings, and this time I was not exchanging value, but I was exchanging life in a way, you know. Since for me, I was saving my life, saving my own thoughts, saving my DNA, for them the same, because they were also people that came from like really close backgrounds. So yeah, I don't know if it's like too poetical, it's not really technical, but I see from that perspective.
No, I think you've all answered the question in really different but really interesting ways. And we are unfortunately coming to the end of this session. But I wanted to give you all a bit of a chance to maybe quickly ask each other something, or maybe one of you wants to ask each other something, seeing as you're in the room together. Nope. All right then. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Oh, you got a question?
Yes.
Yeah. If you haven't got any other question, if you've got a question, you've not got a question, I'll open it up to the audience, I think, unless it's burning. You got, okay, ask one question, then I'm going to open it up to the audience.
It's for AX shows. It's more like how, not how difficult, but how it is to be an artist and also like community manager on Web3, because I really admire your work, and when I started to like post on Foundation, I saw you there, and all the time I was thinking, oh my God, it must be wild to be doing all of that, plus like understanding blockchain and like, I don't know, it's just so many things to think about it at the same time, plus like representing art and data and all of the things. So like how it is for you in your personal like view and perspective, like more, I wanted to know more from your experience.
That's so humbling because I'm a fan of you. It's crazy. Yeah, how things have changed and how hard it is. That's your main question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I would have made it this far without help of other people. But I think at the beginning of NFTs, I think I mentioned yesterday that I felt like I was playing a game. And I get really obsessed with things. That's one thing of mine. Like if I get obsessed with a color, I don't stop. Like I just go with that pattern. I'm obsessed with patterns of behavior too. And I was reading people and how they were reacting to the changes of Ethereum going up, and like just other mediums allowing other people to get in, like Foundation did for a long time. They had this. I was addicted to get into the page because of the way it was built. The algorithm just kept dragging me in and to look at art. It was also really user-friendly and minimalistic, and I loved that. So I kept going in and looking at art, and I even started collecting from other artists. Not at a crazy price, but I will, if I really liked something, I wouldn't hesitate to try to get it. And yeah, I felt like I was supporting others, creating a community around that knew that I was there for them, just like they were there for me. One thing that changed is that I don't post that much anymore. I think I don't have time, and that wasn't a thing before. Before I was just like doing that because I wasn't doing anything else, and I wasn't even looking for a job. I just really wanted to do art, and that's it. But now I have a responsibility, take care of my family, and take care of like the things that I've built. So I'm dividing myself between the world, that safe space that I created before, and now doing things that are more related to the professional sort of like art world. So many doors have opened, and with those doors open, I think I've tried to bring people in. And I don't do it just because I may like the person, but because I like the art. I'm always like that. Like, I can't really do anything that I don't really feel like doing. And sometimes I get in trouble for that too. But this is the way I am, and I think it's the best way to go. Some people share projects because they get paid or they think they're gonna get likes or whatever. But honestly, if I don't like your poster, I'm not gonna share it. Or I don't like your art, I'm not just gonna share it. It's like that. And I think that's part of like curation, like creating that sort of taste around a certain communities that you like. Another thing that changed is that people in Panama got to know me better, and when I go to a place, they recognize me. And even here, it's been really weird. Like, people is like, I like shells. I'm like, I get happy because it's a weird feeling, but humbling at the same time. And yeah, like, I've gotten to know so many artists through others that also get excited about artists, like Lady Phoenix. Lady Phoenix talks about your art all the time, and that's how I know it. She's another force in the space. But yeah, with other curatorial pages, like, I think I've been doing that for a while. I share other people's art on my stories, and I try to curate it, and I try to write a little bit about it sometimes. And it's just because of the love of it. And that's how this community has grown. If we keep doing that, I think more people will have the chance to keep growing that way, instead of becoming individualistic and just, hoarding all of those achievements.
Thank you so much for that, and thank you for the questions. Thank you, everyone. I do want to check if we have time for one question or one. Yeah. If I think this person on the right was the first question. Sorry.
Beautiful. Excellent panel. I got to discover some great artists here. I'm a collector and creator on Tezos. My question is, Sutu has created, like we talked about the PFP, and really doing a lot to kind of move the community forward and integrating other artists and integrating the collectors. Like, for example, Sutu's done augmented reality with the neons. One of his last things, he did an art contest for digital ink. So, like, tattoos, body tattoos on the game avatars that Sutu is putting together. My question for the panelists is, did you submit anything for the contest? And if not, no, seriously, if not, this is the real question. If not, why and what is the best path for, like, artists to collaborate? Because after checking out your collections, I would love to see something. And it's easy. It's basically like a Photoshop layer. I did one. I know a lot of people did one. But no, seriously, like, the question is, just as an example, but what is the best way for artists, especially on Tezos, to collaborate? Because there is so much possibility, so much passion for this. What is the best medium? Is it Twitter? Is it like Discord? Should there be something else, like a new body to help collaborate? Just your thoughts there.
Well, I'll just say quickly, like, we are finding each other in these communities, and we are finding ways to collaborate. Riddell, I found on Twitter, and a big shout out to him for being such a community force, like powering the whole community, sort of telling everyone to get involved in all these different types of community-driven projects. My little recent art competition was a kind of an experiment to interact with the community in that sense, create an opportunity for artists to create on a platform that I've created. It's a learning experiment for me to answer that question. Like, for me, even, like, I don't know what the best way is. There are examples out there, like we've seen Roblox, there is 50 million users a day, a young audience. They're building entire worlds, video games. It's pretty wild to see that. Minecraft's obviously been around for like over a decade now. also tens of millions of users. I think it's a combination of creating access for one, and exciting tools that very quickly people can see how they can unlock their creativity through those tools. So, you know, access and just an easy onboarding is a good way to go. And I think, like, moving forward, we're going to see like that gap for people to become creators get smaller and smaller with the inclusion of things like AI and stuff like that. But when I'm like lecturing or whatever, you know, and I'm talking to young creators, I always will ask first, like, especially if you're storytelling or something, you know, why are you using this technology, and what's the purpose? What purpose does it serve? I'll give a quick example. I'll try to keep this very quick, but for example, I told a story about my grandfather suffering from Alzheimer's, like back in 2015 or something, and I noticed everyone was on their phones like this all the time. Back then, that was the way that we were absorbing information.
That project was amazing, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
It made me cry.
But as you scrolled through the story, you realised that the story is fading away, and if you tried to scroll back, it's no longer there, which was a gesture to Alzheimer's and losing memory, obviously. But my true intention was to actually force you all to remember my grandfather. And that was kind of a revelation for me at the time, because I realised, like, technology can be very powerful, you know, if we can really dive in deep and figure out, like, what is the purpose of this, or how can we use it as another layer of connection to allow us to connect to one another on a human level. And so that was a discovery that was quite simple. You know, it wasn't an overly complicated thing, but it resonated very well with a lot of communities and stuff that had been through. I got so many emails after that, and that was really heartwarming. So it's a combination of that, you know, why even use the technology in the first place? And if you find communities, that's a beautiful thing. But
okay. Thank you, everyone, for your time today. It's a pleasure to talk with you all, to hear all your answers, and I look forward to continuing to connect with you all. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and we bring it to a close.